Ahead this hour, United States Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee joins me. He has some fierce words about Iran and its axis of terror. Hear what the ambassador thinks should be done to stop this regime, not just now, but for good. Is that going to happen? No one knows, but we do know this. Right now, an armada of U.S. warships are en route to Iran. President Trump is ramping up our forces, and he's also ramping up the language. President Trump also has a lot to say about this next story. It's Coach Bill Belichick getting snubbed by the NFL Hall of Fame. The legendary coach brought the Patriots 6 Super Bowl championships. No NFL coach has ever done that. How can that not make him a shoo-in? Is the Hall of Fame blind? But first, the man who attacked Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is in custody awaiting charges. Here's what happened yesterday at a town hall in Minneapolis.
And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment.
The Minnesota Democrat was sprayed with a syringe filled with an unknown substance. Reports say that the substance was apple cider vinegar. The suspect was tackled and arrested on suspicion of assault. As an aside, suspicion of assault? You saw it with your own eyes in the video, didn't you, right? Well, this happened during the Congresswoman's speech. She was calling for ICE to be abolished. By the way, not agreeing with what a member of Congress says is not a legal defense to assault. And today we learned the officers involved in the fatal shooting of an anti-ICE protester and ICU nurse, Alex Pretti, have been placed on administrative leave. That is routine in law enforcement pending complete investigations. Correspondent Joe Moeller joins me from Minneapolis. Joe?
Yeah, a lot of developments coming out of Minneapolis as the demonstrations continue across the city. Behind me here outside the federal building, a few dozen demonstrators. But we've also learned that Attorney General Pam Bondi is here in the Minneapolis area. Just a short time ago, she announced more arrests of people she says allegedly assaulted law enforcement. This is what she posted on X a short time ago. Federal agents have arrested 16 Minnesota rioters for allegedly assaulting federal law enforcement. People who have been resisting and impeding our federal law enforcement agents. We expect more arrests to come. And then she also posted photos of those people and a list of names, she says, for assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers or employees. Her post continued to say, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Nothing will stop President Trump and this Department of Justice from enforcing the law. After learning that 2 officers opened fire during Saturday's shooting of Alex Pretti, DHS now says 2 officers are on administrative leave, and that is standard protocol. On today, there was a lot of back and forth between the mayor of Minneapolis and President Donald Trump after the mayor said police won't help with immigration law. President Trump called out Fry for his comment, writing on Truth Social in part, "Can somebody in his inner sanctum please explain that this statement is a very serious violation of the law and that he is playing with fire?" Mayor Fry responded this morning, "The job of our police is to keep people safe, not enforce fed immigration laws. I want them preventing homicides, not hunting down a working dad who contributes to Minneapolis and is from Ecuador." Now, this comes after Board Czar Tom Homan met with the governor and the mayor just yesterday. The meetings were described as productive, but Homan did acknowledge they did not agree on everything. Walls commented on that meeting on CNN last night.
Tom Homan's a professional, which is a lot more than Bavino and Kristi Noem. But look, I think the thing we said is we're very clear about this, that we need these folks out of Minnesota, and we need justice for Renee Good and for Alex.
And we're learning more about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's unusual incidents that took place last night at a town hall in immigration when a man walked up and sprayed her with a liquid. Well, it appears that liquid, according to reports, was apple cider vinegar. After she was sprayed, she quickly resumed that town hall, and that gentleman was arrested. Omar later wrote she's a survivor, and then she won't let agitators get in her way. She's expected to speak again at a press conference later on today. I'll send it back to you, Greta.
Joe Moeller, thank you. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp and former Special Assistant to President Biden and former Press Secretary to the First Lady, Michael LaRosa, join me. Welcome, both of you. Matt, I hope they throw the book at this guy. I know that a lot of people don't like, it's very polarizing, the Congresswoman from Minnesota, Omar. But, and she's calling for the dissolution of ICE. I get it. But what's going to happen is that members of Congress aren't going to want to go out and talk to the people. They aren't going to want to have town halls. I mean, it's just a terrible thing to assault our representatives. I want to hear from them.
Okay, but let's have one set of rules, and this is the problem we have in the society.
I'll give them to both sides.
I know this is not aimed at you, but you have all these people who came here illegally, which is the center of all this controversy. Then you
But
have
that's not his. What does that have to do with her assault?
I think this is all wrapped up into this, which is people believe that there is one set of rules if you come here illegally, right? And another set of rules for everybody who follows the law. So I agree. This
That's
protest,
still not a defense to assault.
this protester, this isn't a peaceful protester because he did something, physical. So I agree with you. It's clearly against the law, and he's clearly going to have to face his day. I'm fine with him being held accountable to the law, but I want all these people attacking ICE officers and out there protesting in the streets. I don't think we have done very much with these agitators, and we should.
I'm all for. First of all, I defended people protesting for years as a lawyer, and I believe in the First Amendment. I wouldn't have a problem with that guy standing up and screaming and be obnoxious, but it's not against the law. But once you assault somebody, that's the problem, Michael.
Yeah, exactly. And there are Democratic and Republican candidates across the country who are probably, well, I know some of them are reluctant to go out into the public and have these debates in town halls for exactly that reason. They want to make sure that there's security at these events because of the assault on members of Congress from people who are angry that they take a different position than they do, and that's not acceptable.
All right, well,
neither is the agitators who are impeding the actions of ICE.
All right, now we go after you for Walt, since he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
He says that he wants out of Minnesota. In other words, is satisfied with a sanctuary city. A sanctuary city doesn't want to play by the rules, the federal rules. The Supremacy Clause says the federal government is supreme to the state. If they don't want to play by the rules, let them secede. But either you got to, Matt says you want to play by the rules, but these sanctuary cities, there are other ways to change the law than just ignoring it.
We expect the local law enforcement and police to coordinate, our local communities to coordinate with FEMA when they're on the ground. We expect them to work with the Secret Service when they're on the ground, or the ATF and the FBI. It should be no different for ICE. They should be working with ICE.
Well, Waltz is saying? Waltz is saying we're special here. We don't have to follow the federal law.
They're
we
not.
Want them out.
ICE is operating in almost every state right now, and they're the only state that is giving the federal government this huge crisis to deal with because they can't get their city under control. And if the local police were partnering with ICE agents to do crowd control or to help them, allow them to go in and arrest bad guys. Remember, they're just conducting stings on bad guys, like really bad guys. And I don't understand why a mayor or a governor would want to protect these bad guys.
Well, you do understand that a central plank of the Democratic Party is that the people who came here illegally should be allowed to stay here illegally. And they do quibble with whether or not, what's a hardened criminal in all these cases. And there's also a plank of a lot of Democrats that don't want to fund ICE, and they're talking about that in this whole government shutdown.
Then we should back it up to the 80s, and when the last time we had any immigration reform. We have no idea what the law...
Signed by a Republican president and a Republican Senate.
But it was his biggest regret.
And a Republican Senate.
It was Ronald Reagan's biggest regret.
I don't care what they decide. I don't care. But the problem is that they do have an obligation to decide. They do. The Congress does have an obligation to sort out this immigration thing.
But can I push in on this?
Yeah.
I actually think we have the laws on the books. We don't want to enforce them. Look, these people came into the majority of these people that we're talking about weren't here on some kind of temporary protective status. Biden let them come in illegally. And even George Bush, my former boss, his immigration plan said, guess what? If you're here illegally, you must go home. They called it a touchback. Everyone had to go home. I think we're getting consensus that giving amnesty, which Reagan did, is a mistake. Making everyone go home, I'm fine if they go home and pay the fine or fill out their paperwork, and maybe they get to cut in line because they went home because they were good moms and dads and they were contributing.
Well, I think that's...
But they've got to get out of this country. And the reason why we have this problem is they won't.
Well, look, I don't disagree that they should follow the law. I'm just saying that whatever it is, it's got both sides at each other's throats. It's because we have no certainty. If we don't like the law that Reagan passed, then we should change. Then the Congress should change the law that Congress passed. Whatever. It is.
Well, sanctuary cities make that a joke, right? Because they're not following the law.
That's what I'm saying. Waltz wants to secede. He doesn't want to follow
the anger
rules.
And the vitriol at the DA in Philadelphia today called ICE Nazis. We're going to hunt you down if you come to our city. Like, we're going to hunt you down like Nazis. This is
Unacceptable.
Well, it's unacceptable. It's sick. But, I mean, Democrats are going to pay a price for this in the long term. Obama, you know, he deployed really harsh ICE
What did they
ICE
call
raids.
him? What did they call him?
Right.
The deporter-in-chief. That was Obama.
And Joe Biden paid a huge price for Barack Obama's
then
deportation
why isn't-
policies
I mean-
and hyper overcorrected.
Well,
Well, it's interesting that because Obama deported 6 million, I think that's the number.
Big number.
Big number. Trump has not yet hit that number, but boy, they're going after Trump with a
That's-
vengeance and not after Obama.
but here's
That's
the other
what
thing
my
that
problem is.
But here's the other thing that Trump is doing. Let's give Kristi Noem some credit. People have been criticizing her since these shootings. But they came up with this great idea of self-deportation, which was right. They're giving them some thousands of dollars to go home. And I think I'd like to encourage them to do something else. If the president were to listen to this conversation right now, give him $10,000. It's a good policy. Let these people correct the record. Let them go home, fill out their paperwork. They get a full background to make sure they're not a hardened criminal or a drug member, or excuse me, a gang member or something like that. And
How do you
then
keep
they
pointing
can
at
come
him
in
every time you say
legally.
gang member, drug member?
Oh, yeah, I know, as if I represent them.
Yeah,
but
I'm
what
teasing.
Obama did say was he recognized that this was not a painless policy, that there would be pain, that we would be actually deporting people who maybe aren't violent criminals, but are here illegally because even, as he said, broke the law by cheating, by cutting the line.
Well, you know, if you go back, if you pull the string a little bit about it, there are a lot of people here from Venezuela, and Venezuela became a failed economy. And, you know, maybe there's some sort of hope if President Trump can somehow resurrect that economy.
I know this is a sore subject, but I mean, part of the Biden policy of wanting to get to the root causes of migration was to bring the private sector into Latin America, into South America, to invest in an economy that worked, that provided an education, that provided prosperity, that kept people there.
I don't object to
this
that,
was
but what
the
I do,
NAFTA promise, right?
But what I didn't like is I could, time after time, I'd be sitting here on this set watching Mayorkas testify, and he'd say the borders were secure on one half of the screen, and another half people were flowing in like crazy, like you turned on a faucet. And I thought to myself, why is he lying to us?
There's no question. It wasn't
even a good lie because we caught him.
There's no question that our policies were not only a grave error in judgment, but created a crisis that we're in today that brought us to where we are today.
Look, Joe Biden's policies really broke us with these criminal illegals that came into the country. But I want to hit this thing back on this Biden policy of getting investment into Central America and South America. This was the NAFTA promise. We're going to have a trade deal. You're going to have all this investment, and the migration will stop. Well, all we did was shed our jobs from this country, and it didn't stop the migration.
It was an attempt to try to fix something.
But
that's better than. I mean, I'm for any new ideas.
But I like the idea. I like the idea of having a fair trade deal, and let's get these fossil fuel resources in Venezuela moving again. That will be tons of investment. I think that'd be a great thing for everybody in the hemisphere. You disagree?
No.
They need to elect the three of us.
I don't disagree.
Matt Schlapp and Michael LaRosa, thank you both. I don't know if we solved this, but thank you.
I feel better.
I did too. Coming up, Ambassador Mike Huckabee joins me from Israel as President makes a big threat to Iran. Plus, Secretary of State Marco Rubio goes back to his old job. Sort of. I'll explain when the record continues.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
Immuno 150 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
If the power goes out in the middle of winter, do you have a way to stay warm? If not, you need the Vesta off-grid space heater from My Patriot Supply. It's compact, safe to use indoors, and best of all, it doesn't need electricity. Right now, you can get a free Vesta and other bonus gifts when you order the Winter Survival Kit from My Patriot Supply. Just go to mypatriotsupply.com to see everything included. That's mypatriotsupply.com.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
Hi, I'm former Major League All-Star Lee Mazzilli. I'm proud to have played in New York for both the Mets and the Yankees. I'm also proud to be a longtime supporter of Tunnel to Towers Foundation. T2T helps our firefighters, our police, our soldiers, and their families. You can join their cause as well. Just $11 a month will help these brave men and women who keep us safe. Go to T2T.org for more information on how your donation can help.
Today, President Trump sending a very strong message halfway around the world to Iran. Iran is now on notice. President Trump posted on Truth Social, which you can assume the Ayatollah is monitoring, that, quote, a massive armada is heading to Iran. It is moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. It is a larger fleet headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln than that sent to Venezuela. Like with Venezuela, it is ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with the speed and violence, if necessary. Hopefully, Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal, no nuclear weapons, one that is good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence. As I told Iran once before, make a deal. They did not, and there was Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. The next attack will be far worse. Don't make that happen again, end quote. Now, for reference, before the raid that captured former Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the United States had stationed about 15,000 military personnel in the region. The U.S. Navy deployed the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group alongside multiple destroyers, cruisers, and assault ships. So when the president says, quote, a massive armada is heading to Iran, what does he mean? Earlier, I spoke to United States Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Ambassador, nice to talk to you, sir.
It's great to be with you, Greta, and greetings from Jerusalem.
Yes, indeed. Jerusalem, where now, after President Trump's first term, the American embassy is, having gone back to late 1990s when Congress said it should be moved, but it took President Trump in his first term to move it. So I know Israel appreciates that.
Well, I think Israel appreciates it because it is their capital. It always has been. It also is a very practical decision. President Trump was smart to move it here. This is where all the government agencies and ministries are. So if the job of the embassy is to interact with the government, it makes sense to be in Jerusalem. So it was a smart decision, and it's getting smarter every day.
Well, things look like they're getting a little rough, and I'm going to throw to a soundbite of yours. And you'll remember that from when you used to be on Fox, we throw to sound bites, is about what you said about Iran, because I don't want to quote you because these are tough, strong words. So here's what you said about Iran.
We got to remind the world that basically many, many plates of poison are being served by Hamas, the Houthis, by Hezbollah. But all of those plates of poison came out of the same kitchen, Tehran. And if you want to stop the poison, you can change the menu, but it's better to burn the kitchen down and not let them serve those plates anymore.
Ambassador, do you have a sense, we've got this American armada making its way towards the region, and we've got all these sort of fighting words coming out of Iran, and President Trump has been very stern, get rid of your nuclear program. Do you have a sense in Jerusalem of anything happening, or is it just business as usual?
It's pretty much business as usual. There's always some tension. It's like being in Arkansas during April and May, during tornado season. You're smart to be prepared. You're always thinking about it, but you don't stop your life and crawl up under the bed every day because it might be the day that a tornado comes. Israelis are unbelievably resilient. They don't stop living because of something that might happen. And I do think that if the president can get Iran to negotiate and give up their ridiculous notion that they're going to have a nuclear weapon or enriched uranium, nothing would please him more. Nobody wants to see a war. That's the last resort. But I think what the president is making very clear is that There has to be some changes with Iran. They can't keep doing what they're doing and threatening the world, using these proxies to terrorize people and kill Americans. It just can't keep going on.
Well, your words were tough, and actually the way probably many of us feel. I mean, that it's that regime. It's not the Iranian people, but it's that regime that continues to fund the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas. And even if the nuclear program vanishes today, they've still got those missiles with, say, things like "Death to America" on it that can reach Israel.
That's something a lot of Americans don't fully appreciate. A ballistic missile is the size of an 18-wheel truck. They do enormous damage. And if it weren't for the extraordinary capabilities of Israel's anti-missile intercept system, which took down 86% of the missiles that Iran shot at Israel during the 12-day war, this would be a very, very difficult and dangerous place to be. But what President Trump has done, he said to them, you're not going to have nuclear weapons. You're not going to enrich uranium. And he said to them, you've got to quit killing your own people who are protesting. They're being slaughtered. You were so wise to point out that there's a big difference between the Iranian regime and the Iranian people. Those people have been under the oppression of the Ayatollahs for 47 years, and they're rising up. They don't have food. They don't have water. Their economy is in tatters. And what could be used to help them is being used to fund terror activities through all of these proxy groups they have around the world.
I'll tell you, though, what worries me, 86% is not 100%. So that means 14% do slip through the Iron Dome and can hit their target when you can't get 100%. But even more than that, and Israel tells me I'm wrong about this, but the hypersonic missile, which you don't even know it's coming until you get hit because of the speed. It's saying it's 5 times the speed of sound. And I cannot believe that the Iron Dome, which operates on radar and I think sound, can really protect against that. And that's what worries me, is those hypersonic missiles if Iran has them.
Well, Israel has a number of defense systems. They have David Sling. They have the Arrow system. In a joint partnership, they have the THAAD missile defense system, all of which are very, very effective. They also have just released what's called the Iron Beam, which is a laser-based missile defense and especially effective against UAVs or drones, as most people would understand them. Israel is constantly creating, innovating ways to defend its population, which, by the way, Greta, this population here includes 700,000 Americans who live in Israel. That's more Americans living abroad than anywhere but Mexico. So it's in America's best interest to be very, very concerned about something that the Iranians would be aiming at Israel, because they're going to be being aimed at a lot of Americans as well.
Has the Prime Minister been speaking publicly to the people about whether or not they should be getting ready for something or not? Are you sending Americans home from the embassy? Are we at that point where it's sort of non-essentials, or any of those sort of clues that we reporters look for?
No, not at all. I think we were all kind of caught off guard last weekend when some of the airlines said they were suspending flights, and we were thinking, why? There's been no change in embassy processes or scheduling. No one has been sent home. We're not doing departures. We live in an area where you always have to be prepared. So we tell our embassy staff, and we tell everybody, if you're in Israel, just be prepared. You don't know what the Iranians might do, or the Houthis or Hezbollah might do. But I think what we know what President Trump will do if they do try to launch something. And that's what people are missing here. A lot of assets are being moved to the region. And I think people need to recognize that it's not because we're scared to death and we're going to do something. The president still hopes for a peaceful outcome, but he also is not going to wait until Iran launches something and then move assets. He's being very wise, and he showed last summer that when it's necessary for America to act, he's willing to do it. We have a saying, I'm sure you've heard it, down in the Deep South, we say, there's no education in the second kick of a mule. Well, they got a good kick of the mule last summer. I don't think they're getting an education, and they're about to get another kick of the mule if they don't recognize that President Trump doesn't make empty threats. He makes promises, and he keeps them.
Well, you would think that with the Abraham Accords seemingly expanding, more and more people, the Middle East really has been transformed in the last year. It's really extraordinary. Of course, the Abraham Accords go back to the first term with the president, but Israel's in such a mean neighborhood, but it seems to be getting less mean, less enemies. So this seems like sort of this is the last step, is, get rid of the regime. We're not supposed to say regime change, but get rid of the regime, and then we enjoy the rich culture of the Iranian people.
It's a wonderful culture, and people like me, who can remember back before 1979, remember when the Persian culture was one of the most advanced, technologically desirable. It was filled with the latest in art and music and medicine, a magnificent people. And they really deserve better than what they've had under the Ayatollahs. I would also just venture to say, Greta, that, a lot of people, maybe they don't understand that the Israelis, they're resilient people, they're tough, they'd love to live in peace. What I see happening is that for the last 4 months, thanks to the president's initiative on the peace plan and the ceasefire, for the first time since I've been here, we haven't had a single alarm that went off, a siren that told us to get to the shelters. We've had a remarkable period of peace, and it's frankly because President Trump was able to bring every Arab nation together to sign that document at Sharm el-Sheikh. All the hostages, every last one of them are home. It's a pretty good time to be here, quite frankly.
Well, I don't know what to make of this, but the advisor to the Ayatollah says, and I don't know if this is just saber rattling, Iran will hit the heart of Tel Aviv in response to any U.S. attack. We hear tough words out of them. We heard tough words before the 12-day war, and look at what that got them. But it still is disturbing when you hear such horrible words.
You always take it seriously. When people tell you they're going to kill you, you don't blow it off and ignore it. But you do prepare for it, and you are prepared to defend yourself and to strike back. And I think that's what we're seeing. It's not that anybody wants a war, but if Iran wants to start one, I'm not sure they have the capacity to stand up to the joint capacity that both the United States and Israel has to say, not today, Satan.
Yeah, those tough protesters, a lot of lives lost. Ambassador, nice to see you. Come on home soon.
Thank you, Greta. Great to be with you.
Retired U.S. Navy captain and former Pentagon official Brent Sadler joins me. Good afternoon, sir. And help me understand this. Is in the beginning, starting with the late protests in Iran back in December, the whole idea was that our red line, President Trump's red line, was the slaughter of these innocent protesters, just a mass slaughter. And that was going to be the red line. Well, now the discussion is of Iran to stand down on its nuclear program. But then last June, in the 12-day war, we were told that we had so disabled or diminished their nuclear capabilities that it'd be a couple of years. So why are we doing this?
Yeah, I can connect a few dots and details in here. So I wouldn't say that there's been a red line. Certainly, the president gave a very explicit warning about executing the protesters that were in their custody and doing a public execution, which the regime seemed to have relented and might have forestalled a strike about a little over a week ago. But clearly, 30,000 plus dead Iranians, another 20,000 in prison that could face execution is really in the balance here for what the U.S. response would be. And now the military is still getting in place to provide provide our president the option to strike. It's not fully in place yet. So we might see, and certainly hope the Iranians blink, but a couple other details. The nuclear program, the Iranians, after the strike in the summer, they've increasingly made clear that they intended to resurrect that nuclear weapons program, the full enterprise. They've also been caught trying to replenish their ballistic missiles program with shipments from China into it with key parts that they need, one of which was interdicted back late last year by U.S. Special Forces in the Indian Ocean, one of these so-called dark fleets or stateless fleet ships.
Well, I know the word regime change is sort of like a dirty word. Nobody wants to say regime change because we've run into those problems in other parts of the world in our history. And we saw that in Venezuela. It was quite shrewd, is that while we removed Maduro, the vice president is there leading the country. And so, if she works appropriately with us, she'll have a rich and vibrant economy and country. But if there's a, quote, regime change, if the Ayatollah is eliminated in Iran, who's going to be in charge? We don't have some sort of vice president there that that will take over. I mean, then we got a big problem. We got a population that we like very much and likes us, but who's going to be in charge?
Well, I think it's important to stop hating the term regime change, because Maduro was killing tens of thousands of Americans every year. It peaked out at well over 100,000 because of the narcotics trafficking alone, to say nothing of the murder and the impressions they were having and influence they were having on our local police forces and governance through gangs like Tren de Aragua. The Iranian regime has
Let me
American
just stop
blood
you for
on
one
its
second. Let me just stop you for a second. When I say regime change, I want them out of there. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
It's just that the problem with the regime change is, what do we do next? That's the problem. And at least we have a solution temporary in Venezuela, at least.
And I think Venezuela could be an example of what we should be doing when it comes to a hostile regime. And you have people there that want to change it. So in the case of Venezuela, they have a democratic history that's not that long ago that they can go back to. They have the architecture, the backbone for it. And simply trying to enable and allow it the space to come back and to allow an open and free society in Venezuela, that's really for the Venezuelan people. The same for the Iranians. The Iranians also, it's not that long ago, they don't have a democratic history, but they certainly have a much more Western-leaning and open and pragmatic society that's still within living memory. And the overwhelming majority of the Iranian people want to see a change in government. It's enabling it and providing it the safe space to actually occur.
Well, and they've sort of been hermetically sealed since 1979, since the revolution. But as you say, there are a lot of people that do have, see what's going on in the rest of the world and do appreciate a democracy. But the problem is that there's no number two to the Ayatollah that sort of bridges this. And Reza Pahlavi, the Shah's son, would like to go back and leave, but nobody remembers him, and the Shah wasn't particularly popular.
No, I mean, it's real. Again, it comes to the Iranian people deserve a better government, but the Iranian people need to find the leader themselves that can actually be the person they center around to bring about that change. Now, in '79, it wasn't a uniform movement. I mean, the Ayatollah came back. There were several different groups that were still all vying for power. There were leftists, there was Marxists, there were also former Pahlavi supporters as well. And that took a year before that regime fell and was replaced by what we have today. It may take many months still before a central leader or several central leaders are clear and the Iranian people kind of rally around. So I think this is longer than a few weeks. This is more like months in the making.
Well, we watched very carefully. Lots at stake. Brent Sadler, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio returned to his old stomping grounds, the United States Senate. Rubio testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. While a U.S. Senator, Rubio served on this committee for 14 years. During his testimony today, Rubio discussed the U.S. operation that captured former Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Here are a few highlights from Rubio's testimony.
For the first time in 20 years, we are having serious conversations about eroding and eliminating the Iranian presence, the Chinese influence, the Russian presence as well. In fact, I would tell you that there are many elements there in Venezuela that welcome a return to establishing relations to the United States on multiple fronts. NATO needs to be reimagined as well in terms of the obligations. And this is not new to this president. Multiple presidents have complained about it. I think this president just complains about it louder than other presidents. Regime change?
Yes.
Oh, no, I think we would love to see the regime there change. We would like to, that doesn't mean that we're going to make it change, but we would love to see it change. There's no doubt about the fact that it would be of great benefit to the United States if Cuba was no longer governed by an autocratic regime.
Coming up, TikTok reaches a settlement. Is it addictive? That when the record continues.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Not again. Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rove Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at rove.co/sparks.
I was tired of being exhausted at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and constantly suffering from brain fog.
Toxic EMF radiation is coming from your cell phone and smart devices and being absorbed by your body.
We don't see EMFs. It's out of sight, out of mind.
That's why people around the world are choosing Bodywell. Bodywell's technology holds a harmonic pattern that helps your body respond better to EMF exposure, reducing EMF radiation absorption up to 80%. Just peel, stick, and protect.
This little device changed everything.
Bodywell's BioCard protects your entire body. Simply place it in your pocket.
I didn't believe in EMF protection until I actually felt the difference.
I sleep much better, more like a baby.
I mean, my kids are my world, and I want to do everything I can to protect them and give them a better life.
Order your BioCard today, and for a limited time, get a BioChip, a $99 value for free. Go to bodywell.com. That's bodywell.com.
A lot of people don't know their investment portfolios are quietly funding radical left-wing agendas. Is yours? To find out, download the free Monorail Investment Analyzer app. It reveals exactly what your dollars are backing in seconds, so you can align your investments to match your values and grow your money with confidence. Plus, see if you qualify for a $1,000 trading bonus. Visit monorail.com to download the free app and get your free portfolio analysis now.
Just in time for our country's big celebration, the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday is here, and it's free. Give your kids this epic story of freedom, heroes, and fireworks. Get it at freeusagift.com. That's freeusagift.com.
The fastest growing wallet company in America. And you're both Marine Corps vets, right? I mean, this is so crazy cool that this has happened because there's a reason you have this crazy warranty.
We call it the unrivaled guarantee. If you lose your wallet, if it's damaged in any way, any kind of wear and tear, we're going to replace it for you for free. We want you to be satisfied and overly satisfied with your experience with us.
Proof Wallets, carryproof.com, all about the customer satisfaction, the customer experience.
The return of a hero. Today was the funeral for the last Israeli hostage recovered from Gaza. Back on October 7, 2023, Ron Gavilli, a member of the Israel Police Special Forces, was killed by Hamas terrorists. Adding to their cruelty, Hamas took his body back to Gaza. On Monday, the IDF recovered Gavilli's body in a Muslim cemetery in Gaza. The IDF had to exhume and examine about 250 bodies before finally finding and identifying Gavilli. So today, after more than 840 days, Gavilli's family got to say a final goodbye. Gavilli's father, brother, and mother all kissed his coffin. Thousands of Israelis lined the streets as Gavilli's body was driven to the cemetery in Israel. Flags were waved to pay a final respect. Top Israeli officials attending the funeral included President Isaac Herzog and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A month ago, I interviewed Netanyahu and asked about Gavilli, the last remaining Israeli hostage. This is what Netanyahu told me.
He ran to the front on October 7th when these monsters invaded us, raped our women and murdered them, beheaded our men, burned our babies. He fought single-handedly with a broken arm. And then he got shot twice. And he killed 14 of these terrorists until the very last moment and the last bullet. And then they killed him and took his body, so we're going to bring him back.
And indeed they did. Today he was buried. And this is the first time since 2014 that there are no Israeli hostages being held in Gaza. Netanyahu says the next phase is to disarm Hamas. And good news for TikTok. Yesterday, TikTok reached an agreement to settle a lawsuit over claims that the social media company engineered its products to hook young users. The trial was scheduled to begin today in a California Superior Court in Los Angeles County. The lawsuit, now settled, was the first in a series of lawsuits expected to be heard this year against TikTok, Meta, YouTube, and Snap. These cases arise from lawsuits filed by thousands of individuals, school districts, and state attorneys general. The lawsuits accuse these social media companies of making their products addictive and causing personal injury. The plaintiffs in these lawsuits are seeking monetary damages as well as changes to the design of the social media platforms in order to curb excessive use. Both TikTok and Snap have now settled this one case, but there are many other cases pending against social media companies across the country. Those also include other defendants such as Meta and YouTube. All four social media companies, TikTok, Snap, Meta, and YouTube, deny allegations that there is a link between social media use and addiction. Each company has also pointed to a federal shield law, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. The companies claim that this federal shield law protects them from liability for what their users post online. Coming up, who is calling for the NFL Hall of Fame to be shut down? Our outrage of the day when the record continues.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop, bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
Little by little, age-related macular degeneration tries to take away your vision. You're not the type to sit back and do nothing, so now's the time to take action and make a plan with your doctor that includes PreserVision. It contains the clinically proven formula recommended by the NEI to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. PreserVision is backed by over 20 years of clinical studies, and it's right here in the palm of your hand.
You spent a lifetime becoming who you are. Don't let AMD take that away.
It's your vision. Take action. Choose PreserVision.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
It's time for our outrage of the day. Say what you want about him, but 8 Super Bowl rings, and he is not voted into the NFL Hall of Fame. Really? I'm talking about former New England's Patriot head coach and current head coach at the University of North Carolina, Bill Belichick. With the Hall of Fame vote, Belichick will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. For the average football fan, you know all about his incredible winning streak. Of his 8 Super Bowl rings, 6 are as head coach of the Patriots and 2 as an assistant coach for the New York Giants. He won 31 playoff games, most all time, 333 total wins, second most all time, and 17 division titles, another record. Critics will point out Spygate and Deflategate, but time, get over that, it's been years. Belichick won more Super Bowls after both of those. The decision by Hall of Fame voters did not just shock the sports world. President Trump, not one to mince words, said, quote, "It is the same mindset that gave pro football the new and unwatchable sissy kickoff rule that made it possible for Bill Belichick to not be elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Both are ridiculous and should be overturned," end quote. According to ESPN, Belichick is puzzled and disappointed. He reportedly said, quote, 6 Super Bowls is not enough? What does a guy have to do? Belichick's quarterback, Tom Brady, with whom he partnered 20 seasons, said this.
If he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, there's really no coach that should ever be a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is completely ridiculous because people deserve it.
ESPN writer Dan Wetzel wrote a column today calling to shut down the Hall of Fame since Belichick did not make it on the first ballot. There's always next year for Belichick, but to not allow the greatest head coach in modern times in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot is an outrage. Meanwhile, the end of an era. If you fly on Southwest Airlines, you will no longer head to the gate, line up, and grab a seat like it's musical chairs. For 54 years, Southwest upheld its open seat policy. The policy was the earlier a customer checked in for his flight, the earlier he got to board and pick his seat. Now, travelers will be assigned seats by the airlines unless the passenger pays extra to choose his own seat while booking the flight. Southwest says the new policy is better for passengers and, quote, removes the uncertainty of not knowing where the passenger will sit in the cabin. One Southwest passenger in Sacramento agrees.
I personally really love it. I think before it would give me anxiety when I had to check in because that was like what was, like your boarding group, your number was based on like what time you check in. And now I checked in like 2 hours ago and I have my seat already and I feel great about it. Like it's amazing, honestly.
The first Southwest flight without open seats took off yesterday. Coming up, a pop star comes to Washington as a first lady goes to Wall Street. That when the record continues.
When I'm congested, I can't breathe, can't sleep. That's why I Navage. The powered suction gives me the power to remove congestion fast by flushing out germs, mucus, bacteria, and viruses. In like 30 seconds, I can feel the results.
Get #1 doctor-recommended Navage.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
I have 3 acres, 3 dogs, 2 horses, and it's kind of an ongoing all day long event. I love it, and I wouldn't want to stop it for any reason. And I feel the same way about Balance of Nature. I would not stop Balance of Nature anyway. There would be no way. You wouldn't be able to force me to stop taking it. It is a no-brainer.
Go to balanceofnature.com and lock in 50% off for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System.
Nearly home.
Who done it? We're looking for a house closer to everything, but we don't know where to start.
Find it with Realtor.com. With Real Commute, it's easy to find a home closer to what's ever close to your heart. Do y'all recycle? Realtor.com.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with preserved gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you. Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
Satellite internet that's fast, reliable, and installed by professionals. For work, for play, for every day. Available anywhere you call home. Visit Viasat.com/internet now or call 833-8Viasat to sign up today.
Today, President Trump spoke at a summit on Trump accounts. What are Trump accounts? I asked the same questions, but now I know. They are long-term investment accounts for children under the age of 18.
We'll fund those personal accounts with a seed contribution of $1,000. Parents, employers, churches, states, and loved ones will also be able to add up to $5,000 in additional money for those accounts. And with every modest contribution, Trump accounts should reach at least $50,000 in value by the time the child turns 18, and could be very substantially more than that. With slightly greater contributions, the typical account will grow to $100,000, $200,000, and can even grow up to past $300,000 per child.
The president also brought a special guest on stage, rapper Nicki Minaj.
I don't know what to say, but I will say that I am probably the president's #1 fan. That's not going to change. And the hate or what people have to say, it does not affect me at all. It actually motivates me to support him more.
Trump accounts are launching July 4th, our nation's birthday. And at 4 p.m., stock market closed for the day, but it is how it started that has people talking. A special guest rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. First Lady Melania Trump rang the bell to mark the premiere of her documentary, Melania. On Friday, the movie which she produced will be released to theaters. So was the First Lady a good omen for the markets today? Maybe. For the first time ever, the S&P 500 crossed the 7,000 mark. It ended the day slightly down 0.01%. The Dow closed up 0.02% and the NASDAQ up 0.17%. Besides the First Lady's appearance on Wall Street, there was also news from the Federal Reserve. The Fed announced it is making no changes to the interest rate. Fed Chair Jerome Powell had this to say.
Having lowered our policy rate by 75 basis points over the course of our previous 3 meetings, we see the current stance of monetary policy as appropriate to promote progress toward both our maximum employment and 2% inflation goals.
As you know, President Trump wants Powell gone. Powell's term ends in May. Yesterday, President Trump said he will soon announce his pick to replace the Fed chair. Coming up, a snowstorm in Michigan did not stop one very bold porch pirate. Was the crime worth it? You decide when the record continues.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
The perfect gifts. The Jewelry Exchange has diamond pendants $99, diamond clusters $249 per carat, 5-carat diamond tennis bracelets $8.99, 1-carat studs and solitaires $2.99. Great service, selection, and prices. Factory direct. The Jewelry Exchange.
This is the story of the one. The one knows that when the big game is days away, the unexpected can put everything on the line. But with a solid game plan and a teammate like Grainger that she can rely on to deliver the product she needs when she needs it, she's confident that she will always win the day. And her team will do the same. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Anybody who's struggling with alcohol should try Or Health. Within a week, the cravings were completely gone. Or Health is safe, science-backed, and it works. I couldn't believe how easy it was. Alcohol doesn't run my life anymore.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
Set sail toward fast asthma relief with Brethora.
$300 for a refill?
Don't pay that. Use Single Care. Look up your prescription, show the coupon to the pharmacist, and save.
See what more people are saving with Single Care.
Talking to people today about their retirement accounts. Sir, excuse me. Yeah. Do you have a retirement account?
Yeah, I've got a TSP from my old government job.
How's that doing?
I'm forgetting about it. I can't contribute to it. There are fees to get the funds, and the investment options are limited, so the money's just stuck.
How about a gold IRA?
I can do that?
Absolutely. You can roll it into a gold IRA, and you have all the same tax advantages as a TSP, but with more flexibility. And you can put physical gold and silver in your retirement account.
I'm taking control with Noble Gold Investments.
Your retirement, your rules. Noble Gold.
Check their new game day fit. Oh, snap! DirecTV got hot.
That's right. DirecTV is flexing with all those pro and college games at your fingertips. This ain't your dad's cable, son. It's Couture.
Okay, thank you so much. I was about to say that. It's Couture.
Police in Michigan need your help. State police in the town of Wayland released this video of a theft. Someone stole a 6-foot-tall taxidermied black bear from a front porch. The bear was not only huge, but it was wearing some unique pieces. Police say the bear had on a ring, a necklace, and a fake sheriff badge. What do we know about the suspect? Not much. Police say they're looking for male or female, thin to medium build, wearing glasses, and black attire. It's not much to go on. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is up next. Stay with Newsmax.